All right, welcome back. Today, we are diving headfirst into one of the most intense and, let's be honest, symbolic passages in the entire Bible, Revelation, chapters 14 through 16. We're going to trace this powerful chain reaction of judgment, and it all kicks off with a really mysterious harvest before ending with those infamous bowls of God's wrath. And you know what? The way this whole sequence connects, it's probably not what you're expecting. So this brings us to the central question we're digging into. When Revelation talks about this great harvest of grapes that get thrown into the winepress of God's wrath, who exactly are these grapes? The interpretation we're going to unpack today, well, it might just completely flip how you see this famous and often really misunderstood image. So yeah, let's start right there with that harvest. This is the very first link in this powerful chain of divine judgment. But as we're about to see, what it really means isn't quite what it looks like on the surface. Okay, so the chapter lays out two big harvest events, one for grain and another for grapes. Now, the common take on this is pretty straightforward, right? It's God gathering up all the wicked people of the world for their final punishment. But the sources we're looking at today, they suggest something way more radical, something that turns this entire scene completely on its head. And here is the twist. According to this view, the harvest, it's not of the wicked at all. It's actually the final great martyrdom of the church. Think about it. The grain and the grapes, these are the sacramental symbols of Christ's body and blood. They represent the saints, gathered together in one last, ultimate act of sacrifice. I mean, that is a shocking rereading of this text. So the evidence for this view really boils down to two key clues in the text itself. First, the grapes are trampled outside the city. That's a direct echo of where Jesus himself was crucified. But second, and this part is absolutely crucial, that phrase, the winepress of God's wrath, doesn't mean the grapes are the ones getting punished. No, it means the wine they produce, their blood, becomes the very substance that unleashes God's wrath on the world. And that leads us directly to the second link in this chain of events, because this great martyrdom, it's not the end of the story. Not at all. It's the catalyst for everything that's about to be unleashed. The imagery that's used to describe this is, well, it's staggering. The text says that the blood from this winepress creates a river so deep it comes up to a horse's bridle, and it flows for 1,600 stadia. That's almost 200 miles. I mean, the land itself is symbolically just drenched in the blood of the innocent. So this river of blood is what our sources call wrath wine. See, in the biblical worldview, when innocent blood is shed on the earth, it doesn't just soak in and disappear. It cries out to God for justice. This massive, symbolic flow of martyrs' blood becomes a kind of memorial of iniquity, and it absolutely demands a divine response. So the crucial point here is that none of this is random. The blood of the saints has now, symbolically, filled the land, and that very act is what directly summons what the Bible calls the avenger of blood. This immediately sets the stage for the 7 last plagues, which aren't just some arbitrary punishment, they are a direct answer to the injustice that just happened. And this brings us to the climax of this whole chain reaction, the pouring out of the 7 bowls of wrath. But according to this interpretation, these are not just random plagues. They are something much, much more profound, a form of judgment that has been turned completely inside out. So what exactly are these bowls of wrath? Well, to get it, we have to look all the way back to the sacrificial system of the Old Testament and then watch as the whole thing gets flipped on its head. The central concept here is that the 7 bowls represent an anti-sacrifice. For centuries, the rituals at the temple in Jerusalem were all designed to cleanse and atone for sin. But in this final judgment, every single one of those rituals is inverted. Symbols that once brought cleansing now bring defilement and judgment. Okay, so here's how that logic works. For thousands of years, the blood of sacrifices was presented to God in bowls, and it was a symbol of atonement. But for those who reject the ultimate sacrifice of Christ, God now rejects their offerings. So in this final poetic act of justice, all of that rejected blood is poured back onto them. Instead of cleansing, the result is utter defilement. And you know, the book of Revelation itself makes this principle crystal clear. This verse explicitly connects the pouring out of the bowls to the shedding of innocent blood. It's a perfect, almost mathematical kind of justice. What you have given out is now given right back to you. So now we get to the final stage of this judgment, The sixth bowl, it targets a very specific and incredibly symbolic location, the great river Euphrates. This plague dries up the most important river in the ancient world, the one that marked the eastern boundary of the Promised Land. This act is just loaded with historical meaning, and it actually carries a double meaning that changes everything for both the bad guys and the good guys. And this act has this powerful two-sided meaning. For the persecuting city, which Revelation calls Babylon, a dried-up river means destruction is coming. It's just like how the historical Cyrus the Great conquered the real city of Babylon. But for the saints, a dried-up river means liberation. It's the sign of a new exodus, just like when the Red Sea parted for the Israelites to escape Egypt. And this also clears up one of Revelation's most debated phrases, the kings from the sun rising. They aren't some foreign army invading from the east. In this interpretation, they are the church itself, now finally freed from Babylon and ready to cross that dry riverbed to begin their great mission to the whole world. So let's just recap this whole unbreakable chain one more time. The final martyrdom of the sands produces the wrath wine of their own blood. That blood cries out from the land, demanding justice. That justice is delivered as this kind of anti-sacrifice, where the tools that once brought forgiveness now bring judgment. And this final judgment completely dismantles the old persecuting order, clearing the way for the church's new mission. And that leaves us with a final, really challenging thought. This entire sequence isn't presented as some arbitrary punishment from an angry God. It's a direct cause and effect consequence of injustice. So if judgment is simply the natural result of our own actions being returned to us, what does that reveal about the very nature of justice itself? Something to think about. Thanks for joining us.